Al Horford has been crushing it since Kristaps Porzingis went down with injury, but can he keep it up in the Eastern Conference Finals? I love that intro. Yeah, I'm joined by my boy Cody Shalafu. Cody is one of my OG podcasting homies. I don't know how else to describe it. Cody's he's a broadcaster coming up in the game. Watch out for him in a few years' time. Cody, what's going on, my guy?
Nothing much, man. Just excited the Celtics are like actually closing out series at a reasonable pace this year. It's been very fun. Nice change of pace.
Yeah, no 7-game series when it should have gone 4, right?
100%. Like the 5-game series, I'll take it. Everyone else is going 7 and beating each other up when we're lounging around and resting our knees and resting our backs and resting our everything. So I'm chilling.
Yeah, it's like Al Horford's 1 year older than me. So I understand the aches and pains that come with being this age. I do not understand how he sustains playing elite sport. But, you know, I don't have the sports science department with me right now helping me through my aches and pains. So he's definitely got some advantages there. Plus, he's probably took way better care of his body. But he's been thrown into a position now where Porzingis has been out. He's played the entire series against Cleveland as the starting big. We'll continue that against Indiana or New York, whoever comes out of Game 7 tomorrow. We're recording this on Saturday. They'll play on Sunday. You're like an Al Horford super fan at this point.
I love Al Horford, and when Al was when he first got here, I was super excited for Al Horford. He's kind of the player that I love, like just the guy who does a lot of stuff that don't show up in the box score. A great defender. We've seen what he was when he first got here, and we've seen how he's matured and flowered as he's gotten older. His role has kind of diminished, but he still has that impact, and he has it more in spurts now. He's not as consistently incredible as we saw him in his first stint in green, but he has those game 5s against Cleveland. He still has those, and he's shown that, and he's been awesome. I mean, I was on record for saying, like, during the Kyrie Irving days that Kyrie was our best player, Al was our most important player. And even sometimes, this year and the year before that, it's shown up. And again, last game 5, 22 points, 15 rebounds, 6 threes, 3 blocks. Like, that's awesome. I think there's something like that stat line has never been done in the NBA playoff history, which is just wild with all the greats who have played in the playoffs for all these years. So I love Al Horford. I will always love Al Horford. It's the reason why we drink chocolate milk on game days. He's just the best.
So this is the question, though. Was that game obviously that game 5 performance was kind of water finding its level in terms of he'd been slumping from the perimeter, and then it was an overcorrection, so now it's probably going to level back out. Maybe it will go back into a slump and we'll get another overcorrection when they really need it, another closeout game. But overall, Horford's role has been floor spacing, rebounding, defending at a high level. I've been quite vocal about, hey, when Horford's on the floor, I'd prefer him not to be in drop. I'd prefer him to be in switch, because his value to me is being able to switch out early, pressure the ball early, and not have to let guys build up speed as they attack him, right? Because he just doesn't have the foot speed or the hip flexibility to be able to change directions as quickly as he used to. So get up high on them, limit that ability to take you off the dribble, and then really pressure the ball that way. That takes a toll, though. Obviously, when you're going fighting over screens, switching off screens, you've got guys running into your chest. Do you think that, especially if it's against New York, more so than Indiana, and it's going to be more physical, especially because New York are missing like 99% of their entire starting team, and they've just got no other choice but than to punch you in the face? Do you think he can sustain it for a few more games?
See, I think he would maybe fare a little bit better against New York than Indiana. Indiana loves to run. We've seen they are a run and gun team, and they've put up 140 on us. It just helps that we put up like 160 on them. And that's, how we got a couple of those wins. But Indiana's also a team we faced a good amount of times this year. Both of these teams we faced, obviously Indiana more because we had to play in and they were in our group. We played them a couple more times. They beat us in the play-in tournament, even though that was way back when, and it's a whole new season now. We've seen Indiana more than we usually would have. Obviously, we played New York a bunch being in our division. But you're right with Al. He's old. He's not young in terms of sports. He's about 96 years old in sports years, 37, 38 in regular people years. But we did see in times in Cleveland, and I'm not going to sit here and say that he had a fantastic series overall. He had that great game. He's had his moments, but he got slashed up a little bit. But that's also, you're asking a 38-year-old to go guard some of the quickest guards in the league on the perimeter. And it was hit or miss. You had some moments where like, okay, cool, that's Al Horford. And then you had some moments where it's like, geez, that we saw in game 2 with Mitchell when he became more of a facilitator, and that's when they got their only win. And you made a great video about his kind of like step back and hesitation move and creating that space to not only open up his own shot in the mid-range or his own ability to then drive on someone overcorrecting because they see he has so much space, but as a passer. And that's how they won that game too, when he kind of took that step back, still had 30, still shot well, but had 9, 10 assists. And that's where Al, I think against a team like New York, especially with Brunson, and again, these guys have been playing 96 minutes a game. They're not at 100%, but Brunson can really damage Al there. Where in Indiana also, they're just running the whole time. So you just kind of pick your poison. More of a half-court set, I think the Celtics can take advantage of that, especially when they're only playing 6 guys. I think Al's more comfortable there. But also when the running gun style, that's just going to increase your offense here or there. So Al, it really is Al going to hold up? And it's interesting to see. Obviously, I think a lot of us were asking, like, why didn't Tillman play a little bit more? I love Xavier Tillman. He's a guy that when he was in the draft, he thought would be a great future Celtic, in the draft then. And we got him. He's shown his moments. Obviously, he's not, an all-star. So I'm not sitting here like, why is he not playing? Obviously, he's a bench player. He has his limitations. But I think he emulates Al a little bit where he can hold his own on defense. He can space the floor a little bit. So I would love to see Tillman get some run. And that's just to give Al a break. I mean, we saw him put up, 39 minutes against Cleveland, 34 minutes against the Heat. He's been playing high 20s minutes, 35 in that last game against Cleveland. That's a lot of wear and tear. He's not 30 years old anymore. He's not 31. So I would like to see them give him a little bit of break so he can have those moments where you're not burning them out in game 1 or 2 of a series, where he can have a really good game 4, game 6, game 7 if we get there, which is the playoffs. That could happen at any time. So do I think Al can still have his moments? Yes, I do. Am I a little concerned he's been getting all this, run? A little bit, yeah.
I'm trying to find it right now. We've got. I was reading a mailbag earlier from Brian Robb of Mass Live, and the reason that I'm trying to find it, and I've just found it, so I'll share my screen actually, just so we can look at this together, was when we was talking about Tillman and how we'd like to see Tillman play. Right, so we're going to come up here. Let me just increase the size here. If anyone's listening on podcast feeds, I will read out the quote I'm trying to find. So as we scroll down, here it is. I think Tillman's chance in the playoff rotation has probably already come and gone, barring major injuries hitting. Tillman was given more of a shot in game 2, but the team's offense fell off. The Cavs ignored him on the perimeter, and he doesn't have enough size to finish consistently in the paint. With Luke Cornett holding his own as a backup center, it's hard to see Tillman unseating him at this point. So there, I kind of have a pushback here, just a little bit. I think that teams sag off Luke Cornett just as much on the perimeter as what they do with Tillman, because neither of them are a perimeter threat. I've been very vocal about there's a way to have gravity on the perimeter without needing to hit the free ball, and that is to be an elite screen and roll guy. Know when to slip, know when to pop, know when to veer into a second screen or whatever it is. Now, obviously, Cornett's size makes him more of a factor there when he's rolling, because you've got the over-the-top, like high-low entry pass. You can get into Cornett, who can then go into a handoff action and so forth. But Tillman's stronger. So Tillman doesn't have the height factor there, but he can body you in the block and he can get to his spot, same way as what Al could. I don't agree with this take from B-Rob in terms of saying like his chances in the playoff rotations probably come and gone. I'd say that he never had much of a chance in the first place, just because he came into the rotation late. The rotation was set and being successful, and everything Tillman can do, Horford does better. So unless Horford gets injured, I wouldn't expect to see Tillman anyway. But what I will say is, I do think that Tillman last season was giving Anthony Davis nightmares on defense. You know what I mean? And if he can do that, and now you're struggling to keep up with an Isaiah Hartenstein or a Miles Turner in pick and roll because they're just so big and strong. Why not throw Tillman out there because of how physically powerful he is and how much he can kind of just absorb that beating to give Al Horford a rest? I think that if you go Luke Cornett on Hartenstein or Turner, he's going to get bullied quite easily, and there are certain matchups that I don't think work for Cornett. So I wouldn't say that Tillman's chances are gone, but I would say that they were never very high to begin with.
Yeah, and when I say play Tillman, I'm not like give him 25 minutes, give him 30 minutes, start the guy, play him more minutes than Jason Tatum, make him the coach. That's not what I'm saying when I say play Tillman. But we've seen with Al, and again, he's had his good games. Was a little bit of a mixed bag in Cleveland. While I do still think he had his moments where he was great. The 3-point ball, and here's why giving him that. A lot of those were short, and I was seeing a lot on Twitter like that's gas, like that is just fumes,
heavy legs. Yeah.
So if you just give Tillman 5, and also, can we just take a moment? Luke Cornett this year has been great. I mean, I remember coming into the season, it's like, we don't have a backup big man after Al Horford. We're done. Celtics get one injury, they're done. Luke Cornett's been awesome. And he has statistically been one of the better backup bigs, probably the best third big in all the league, potentially. Like, without the numbers right, just off the top of my head, he's been awesome. So let's give little claps for Luke. Little claps for Luke. He's been great. But with Tillman, again, he does a lot of things Al Horford does. And he only has to play 5 minutes. He only has to play like at the end of like a third quarter, end of a second quarter, just to give Al that break. What would you rather have? 30 minutes, 35 minutes Al Horford, where, all right, fourth quarter crunch time, it's a toss-up whether he's going to have it or not. You won that toss-up in Game 5 when he hit that huge three, had 6 threes out of 13 attempts, was awesome. Had one of the best moments of the playoffs so far with his scream at the end, Kevin Garnett-esque. Or would you rather have 25 really, 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 really good minutes of Al Horford that you're going to get? And, 10 minutes to Luke, 5 minutes to Tillman. I mean, again, I'm not an NBA.
The question is, though, is Mazzulla going to be willing to go an extra player deep in that rotation? Because that just becomes a question. People overanalyze that. Like, hey, you were going 7 deep in the opening series, 7 deep or 8 deep in the second series, whatever it was. I think they've stuck consistently at 8 deep. But now you've gone 9 deep in the finals. Pause. What are we doing here? Like, people are going to question that. Why change a winning formula? And I understand it because I think that and there's an episode on the YouTube channel about this. Like, you need to try and figure out a way to manage Horford's minutes as a starter until Porzingis is back, and then you can do what you need to do because you go back to your usual rotation. The question is Mazzulla going to be willing to go 1 extra deep?
I think it's less of a question of 1 extra deep, or I think great coaches are going to go to the matchup. I'm a baseball guy, as you know. When you get to the playoffs, especially your relief pitching, all right, all the guys that come in late in the games, you're trying to play matchups when outs and runs are important. Between series and series, you can change 3 or 4 of those guys on your roster. If one team has a lot of lefties, you're going to bring up a couple extra left-handed relievers to play that matchup, right? So that's why, like against Miami, we were saying, all right, if Bam's going to be physical, who's our most physical big? Xavier Tillman. Go in there, take some of those hits so everyone else doesn't have to. Maybe even give a couple fouls. Like, I'm not thinking Tillman's like the key to Banner 18, but I think he can be helpful in spurts here. So you're going to play the matchup. If you don't think, and whether we think doesn't really matter, if the Celtics, Mazzulla, and their coaching staff say, hey, look, Tillman does not have a favorable matchup against this team, he just won't play. It doesn't matter if we only have, unless everyone isn't available. Like, again, so I think in that case, I think traditionally as you get deeper, your rotation dips a little bit and you only have, 6, 7 guys you're using, 8 guys you're using. And as you get deeper on, you rely on your bench less. That's pretty standard how it all works. But I think the good coaches just know what the matchup is, and they're trying to win every single match because that's important. Every possession is important. And if they say, all right, Tillman, when he was out there, our offense didn't look good, even though it is a small sample size, like, you don't really have times to tinker around with it right now. So I understand why you don't play Tillman. I still think 5 minutes of Tillman to just spare Al for a second, especially if it's like, you're going into the half and you're up by 12. if you give up a little run and now the game's 7 going into half and those are just 5 Tillman minutes that you used, I think that's worth it. I think that's worth it to, all right, you give up a little bit of run, but now you have the whole second half to just use Luke and Al. You've already used your Tillman minutes. You got him a little bit of a rest. You can make that up. I think this team is good enough to do anything. And I think, we both share that sentiment where they're the best team in the league. And I've always said they're when they're playing their best basketball, they are a tier above everybody, even the Denvers. Now, even the Minnesotas, even everybody. That's just that's what I've seen all year. I'm a sample size guy. I've seen them beat everybody but Denver this year. I think Denver's the only team that they didn't at least tie the season series with. And both of those games are like buzzer beater, last second overtime-ish games.
First last was one of those all-time stinkers from pretty much everybody as well.
Right, yeah.
And then you had an all-time great performance off Jokic and Murray, if you remember. I think Murray went for 50.
A 2-3-point game.
Dude. And Murray went for 50. Dude, neither of them could miss.
Yeah. So I think that, again, I understand. I don't think if Tillman doesn't play, and even though I would like him, I think a lot of people would like him to play even just a little bit. I don't think that means much in the terms of they don't doubt his ability or Joe Mazzulla is not a good coach, which I just think that's just whoever's throwing that out there is just they're trying
lazy.
to get
they're lazy.
Yeah, they're trying to get mad at something, but they're going to go with the matchup. If they don't think the numbers support putting Tillman in, they just won't. No matter how much we say they should, whatever numbers we pull out, they don't believe they will. They don't believe he can help them win or at least tread water, then they're not going to put him in. I would like to see him in again, just for the case of Al Horford. You're trying to manage your guy. You're trying to manage could be his last playoff run. He's been doing this for a while. You never know. Not that I don't think he's hinted at anything, but you never know. He seems like a guy who would just decide one day he's done and be done. And I would hate to see Al Horford go ringless because he got gassed in Game 7 and couldn't hit that big three that he would have if he just had an extra sip of water,
And that's going to be where Tillman becomes valuable. But for me as well, if you look back to when Horford first came, so the Isaiah Thomas years, and you had Horford playing at the top of the perimeter, didn't really shoot the three. He was still very much a post player, but had flashed high-level passing skills. We used to have a discussion back then of, well, if you're going to sag off Horford, lean into Horford's passing and let Horford dictate the play through his passing. Because if you're sagging off Horford, you send him to elsewhere. My argument will stay the same for Tillman, because Tillman's a reasonably good passer. So if people are going to sag off Tillman, run offense through him in the delay, put him at the top of the perimeter, run through DHOs with him, ask him to be a short roll creator a little bit, just make that next read, that one pass away read on a short roll, and punish the defense for sagging off until the defense doesn't sag no more. And then your offense gets back to where it was. And now all of a sudden, he's not a net negative offensively because you adjusted to bring value to his presence and his game on the floor. And then the defense went back, and now you're back in your normal offensive actions. I don't see a problem with that. For 5 minutes a game, you just run some extra slip screens and then ask him to create off a next pass available, like pick and roll, like short roll pass. That's fine to me. Set a screen, slip, get the pass, kick it out to the corner. People are going to stop sagging off you as much because they don't want that short roll to keep finding open shooters in the corner. And then you just start going into standard screen actions via screen actions. It makes perfect sense on paper. The problem is basketball isn't played on paper. There'll be a secondary adjustment there that stops him getting that short roll that doesn't stop them sagging off him. But it gives you those 5 minutes while teams are trying to figure things out. And then, Porzingis isn't going to be out for the entirety of this series. He should be back Game 3, Game 4. I think if Boston are up 3-0, you sit Porzingis until the start of the finals, because why risk it?
Yeah.
If you go up 3-0 against New York, because New York only have Jalen Brunson as the only healthy starter right now, and you're going into Game 4 in a closeout game, not really bothered if you lose, because then you're just going to close it out in 5. You keep KP on the bench until the start of the finals, let him get healthy. Maybe you put him in spot minutes just to slowly ramp him up. But the longer this series goes on without Porzingis in that rotation, the more you need to find ways to maximize Horford's minutes management. You don't want him going deeper than 30. I said the other day, 28 to 32 is kind of my comfortability factor. Anything above 32, I think it's too much.
Yeah, that's very fair. He's done that in the playoffs so far. And above 32, he's done it 3 times. And that was game 4 against Miami, where he had 7 points, 8 rebounds, 1 for 3 shooting from 3. He did that obviously against Cleveland to close them out, where he had his God game. And then he had 39 minutes on the 11th, so that would be game 3 after the rebuttal game after the game 2 loss. 0 for 6 from 3, 1 for 7 from the field, 2 points. 2 assists in 40 minutes, basically. So you're saying out of the 3 times he's gone over 32, had a great game, an awful game, at least on stat sheet on offensively, and a game that was like, all right, that's fine. Like if Al Horford's giving you that, you'll live with that. 7 points off the bench, 8 rebounds. But I think that was his first start after Porzingis went down. So yeah, I mean that's really what it is, right? That's Porzingis isn't here, and you need to. Everyone has to move up a shift. And now you're only using the 2 bigs. My then one rebuttal would be like, all right, so if you're going against Indiana, if say they win, you got Isaiah Jackson, you got Miles Turner in their big rotation. All right, those guys are both like 7 feet tall. Those guys are both big bumpers. Does Tillman's height come into that? Like you read that article where maybe his height doesn't come in. If you go against New York, really, they're only running Hartenstein, right? I mean, everybody
Robinson's out.
Yeah. They don't have another big. So is Tillman valuable? I think a little bit more, right? I know he's a thicker guy, but I've seen him move a little bit. And obviously, you don't want him guarding Brunson one-on-one,
but you don't want Cornet guarding Brunson one-on-one.
Exactly.
The only difference is that Luke Cornet is a better pick-and-roll defender when it comes to containing as the ball handler. He splits his man better than what Tillman does. That's the only difference.
Right. So it's again, it's matchup. It can be matchup dependent. Do you play Tillman more against New York than you would against Indiana? Or vice versa? It's going to be interesting to see what they do. But obviously, it's just trying to keep Horford as obviously we know what White's going to do. We know like everybody else. Like we are solid. Like you have Hauser and Pritchard are doing well. Derek White, he played against Cleveland, I guess. After that first game, he kind of had some shaky stuff, but he was awesome against Miami. Tatum's finally coming around. Jaylen Brown has been awesome. I mean, I don't think we're giving Jaylen Brown too much flowers as he has. Drew Holiday had like 4 really, really, really good games against Cleveland out of the 5. So we're getting everything else. And if our issue right here is who our third big is going to be, I think we're in a really good spot. I don't know about you.
Yeah, for sure, completely. And I think that embarrassment of riches gets overlooked sometimes because everybody just wants to win, and that's fair. The whole point of sports is to win. But I do think when you look at the overall picture, it is the biggest question is who helps Horford hedge those minutes. As you've mentioned, you just went through it. We had some questions over Drew Holiday to start this run. Drew Holiday has been solid the last few games. Derek White had a slump, bounced back. He played really well. Horford's had a slump, bounced back. Tatum, I don't believe Tatum had a slump. I believe he was playing a more complete game. He's become a bit more aggressive, and now he looks dominant as hell. Jaylen Brown's been fantastic. So the big question is, how do you control Horford's minutes? That's literally the only question I've got coming into this series. Now, obviously, for anyone that subscribes to the newsletter, there's always a scouting report the day after we find out who the opponent is. We'll find out tomorrow. So Monday will be a scouting report. And I'm sure I'll have a lot more questions and a lot more talking points once we know who they're going to face.
Yeah.
Right now, we don't know.
Right. No, yeah, that's the truth. So that's, so I'm sure all the coaches are grabbing film and theories and strategies and sets and defensive things against both teams right now.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's the best part about doing this is what we've been asking this team to do is just close out. We've had years and years and years where, a 5-game series that should have been went 7, or a 4-game series went 6 or 7, or you were down 3-2 when you should have been up 4-1. And we haven't had that ability to just delve all this information. And I was watching the Bruins game, unfortunately, last night, and a guy at the desk said something that was interesting. He said, the most valuable thing in a playoff series is information. And it was the first time someone's like said it, and it's like, that's just true. And I was talking with a buddy who was like, people who got so upset we lost to Cleveland, or we didn't beat Cleveland bad enough in game 5, or how we lost to the Heat in game 2, or how we dropped both of those game 2s. It's like, these are good players too. Yeah, is, X 8th player on the Cavs better than Jason Tatum? No. Is he still one of the top 300, 400 basketball players in the world? Yeah, he is. So you also have to give that, anyone can go off and go back to high school. Like, it can happen at any time. And you have, a team that does it, and just the information, whoever has the most information and can use that to their advantage, they win. And basketball is one of those sports where, the players really decide who wins more than I think any other sport. Like, one singular player can put their hand on the sport more than any other sport, really, I think.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
But just the information, and we're just piling up information right now. Again, and not to say that I'm sure the Knicks are preparing for the Celtics as well. I'm sure the Pacers are preparing. I'm sure everyone has books and books and books and stacks on everybody. And like, it's not like they don't know who they're playing, but we just have that ability to put attention right now to more spots than any other team does. So I think that puts us in a really good spot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I can argue there, because not only do you have all the information, every team, by this point coming in, every team has the same amount of information on each other. You've all played each other the same amount of times. They've seen you as much as you've seen them. Your scouts have watched them as much as they've watched you. But it's about having the personnel, and this is kind of just building on what you said, to execute on the information that you're given, right? So some of the worst teams in the NBA, they have the same information, but their players can't execute at that speed because they haven't developed the processing speed as a unit. You might have an individual that can process that information quickly, but the pass that he needs to make might not be available because his teammate isn't there yet, like developmentally. And you've seen that with the Celtics over the years. There's always been one or two guys, like Smart knew where the ball needed to go, but maybe Jonas Jerebko weren't in the right spot because Jonas Jerebko weren't the right personnel guy to have in that spot. Do you know what I mean? Once you get to this level where the Celtics are now, and everyone's elite in their position and their role, that processing speed as a unit is at a completely different level. So then they make the reads quicker.
Yeah, I mean, I did not wake up today thinking that Jonas Jerebko was going to catch a stray on this.
Do you know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, Jonas. It's just the first name that came to my head, bro.
He sent me. Like, what do you say fuck me for? Like,
no, it's just first name that came to my head.
No, yeah, but that's 100% true. And again, we've said all year, like, this team's so good, man. This team's so good. And that's what, like, you watch this team, and as a fan, again, you have probably, like, I think I know a good amount of basketball. I learned, like, let's give a shout out to Adam. I learned so much by watching your shorts, watching your stuff. You're in the trenches. Like, you can pick out a rotation before it even happens. You know all the sets. It's awesome. And just as a fan that, like, knows basketball, I've played basketball, I've coached basketball, I think enough to be an informed person and able to do something like this with you. But just as a fan, just sitting back, like, this has been awesome. This has been so fun. Like, I've never really been a Celtics fan that's seen despair. I think 2014 was that one year, and it was just that one year. And we've had good teams and solid teams and competitive teams basically my whole viewing experience. I started watching, probably around 2009, 2010, like, really, when I started playing, really started watching, like, every single night with Mike and Tommy. And this team, it just feels so nice. And I just want them to win. A hot take, I do not care how they win every game. That's for the regular season. If it is the sloppiest win you've ever seen in your life, and Jason Tatum goes 0 for 98, and we win by 2 for a team that has both of our grandmas out there as the starting guards, I don't give a shit. We won the game. All we need is 8 more. That's all. I don't care how they come. I don't care how they do it. I just truthfully don't care. We just win the game.
Sloppy but coming out on top it.
100%. I mean, at this point, like, November is when you can start criticizing wins. Like, March is where you can start kind of being like, yeah, but they should have done this. Right now, I don't care. Did they win not as big as they should have against Cleveland in Game 5? Sure. Did they win in Game 5 against Cleveland? Yeah. And that's all I care about. So let's just win games. I don't care who you throw out there at this point, but yeah, I think overall the message is rest Al Horford just a little bit.
Yeah, so I want to just say thank you. First of all, thank you for the shout out, man.
100%.
You're one of the first people to be like, yeah, I don't give a fuck if this guy's from England. I'm gonna do a podcast with him. So
yeah, I mean, hey, ball knowers. It is not a territorial thing. It's anyone who's willing to be a student of the game. And as someone who I'm a big historian of the game, and I love the game, and I love my sports that I watch. Baseball, football, all the rest. It is truthfully appreciated how much work you put in a fuck ton of work, man. So I just want to give you. I want to give you on your own podcast. I want to give, not sponsored. I want to give you a shout out, sir, because it's been so fun, watching your growth over the last, I think, like 7 years now, which is crazy. That's how long
it's gone fast, dude. Like 7-8 years. Yeah, it's been a minute.
Oh yeah, right. I think right. When I started college, and so yeah, so just. You're awesome, and I learn something from you all the time. I subscribe to all the 35 YouTube channels you've made, and I watch, try to watch all the shorts, and I learn so much. Even for someone, again, who's been watching basketball for 15 plus years now, I still find ways to learn because you, sir, are such a good student of the game.
You, sir, are too fucking kind. With that, I'm going to end it because it's getting close to food time for Adam, and Adam wants to eat. I have to talk about myself in third person when people are praising me because I'm really bad at taking praise. I appreciate you, though. Everyone, if you've been tuning in, I appreciate you. If you're new here, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. Obviously, you should be subscribing to the newsletter, get analysis, news, breakdowns, all the good shit sent straight to your inbox. There's 2 tiers, a paid tier and a free tier. Paid tier is $5 a month. Free tier is, it doesn't cost shit. You get less, but it's free. So, do what you got to do. I'll catch y'all later. Cody, man, I can't wait to have you back on. It's always fun.
That line's always open, brother man. So send the link and I'm there.
Yeah, bruh.